Welcome back to Third Phase Moon Radio. We are speaking with Sean Stone, filmmaker and host of Buzzsaw, found on YouTube under Lit TV, which, by the way, I got to congratulate you because you just broke 50,000 subscribers. Yes. Nonetheless, before we went to break, Mr. Stone, you mentioned your trip to Iran. What prompted you to go there, and what happened when you were there?
What prompted me to go to Iran?
Yes.
What's wrong with that? It's like, I don't know, man. People think it's such a big deal, but to be honest with you, I was just curious. I'm like, all right, you say this is part of the axis of evil. Let's find out. I want to see what the country's like, and I was invited there by a producing partner of mine who's Iranian, lives in Canada, and well, he lives between Iran and Canada, and we were talking about doing some film projects, frankly, and that's really been my main interest since going there, is being able to shoot a film or two in Iran that would take on topics that would be of interest to an international audience, but being able to make films there to show that, you know, that's really a good way of breaking down barriers, frankly, you know, between countries is art. You know, having diplomacy through artists and, you know, people who are working together on projects, on, you know, storytelling, for example, you know, is a very important. It's a very easy way, in a sense, to start, you know, unveiling that the reality that these people are not different than us. You know, culturally they're different, but, you know, obviously, you know, it's not like not a completely alien culture, and you know, it's not part of the axis of evil. You know, there really is no animosity between the American people and the Iranian people. In a certain sense, the Iranian, you know, anti-Americanism, I think, comes from, you know, a general world antipathy to the perceived American empire. You know, honestly, it has more to do with, you know, their anger, not just Iran, but the world's, you know, realization and anger at the American empire, which is not even American, it's really British. It's a financial empire that looks to, you know, basically seeks out countries for neo-colonial purposes, right? Looking for markets, or for, you know, for countries to gobble up into debt slavery, for example. And that's, you know, the animosity is more against that policy, right? Whether it be military imperialism or economic imperialism. And so the actual, you know, their animosity against that American imperialism is, you know, I agree with it. I'm also an anti-imperialist. And so I have no argument with the Iranian government on that policy. Of course, when it comes to domestic policies, I think almost every government in the world, if not every government in the world, is corrupt and, you know, does things against their own people. But you don't have to look far. You don't have to go to Iran to find that. You know, you find more prisoners in America than anywhere else in the world. You know, so who are the biggest hypocrite? But yeah, my main interest again was cultural and starting to open up some dialogue between our countries. Hopefully.
I think you're doing a great job here. I remember when I was about 14, I watched, you know, Platoon, and then there was Born the 4th of July, and then the JFK, and then Wall Street. All these movies were, you know, bigger than life, involving the world and matters of economic and despair and the whole gamut. And it was pretty impressive. Are you going to be following in your father's footsteps and making any narrative films in the future? Any big plans for a theatrical release in some of these big, heavy-duty subject matters to get the dialogue going?
Let's hope so. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy to make a film, and it's even harder, I think, to do something that's overtly political, that really, you know, let's say, shakes things up in the system. I think we've seen that. You know, you can even see documentaries like Seduced and Abandoned, where they openly talk about the fact that, you know, what's driving movie financing nowadays is not even studios or producers who say, hey, I like this script and let's make it. You know, it's really numbers. It's, you know, who can get in the movie, how much is their foreign sales value. You know, that really limits, I think, the ability to tell certain kinds of stories. I mean, occasionally, you know, they'll say, yeah, 12 Years a Slave was made, and, you know, and Five Stars Club, and, you know, these films got a lot of attention and Oscar success. But those are really the exceptions to the rule. So, you know, let's hope that, you know, I can be able to tell the stories that I feel are important and to help raise consciousness and awareness.
You brought up corruption in our country, and 2 weeks ago we spoke to Senator Gravel again right here on Revolution Radio, and he dropped a bombshell that our elections are rigged. Did you uncover anything like that?
Have I uncovered it? I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it simply because, look, I mean, even if you say that they're not, even if let's say the computer system itself wasn't rigged, you know, where we know now with the balloting, I mean, we know, for example, 2000 that, you know, the balloting and the election was rigged in Florida, right? I remember very much in 2008 when Hillary Clinton wasn't allowed her votes to count from Florida and I think it was Ohio was those two states. And so as a result, she lost the Democratic primary to Obama, you know, because literally those two states had been disqualified from being counted as votes, right? No one remembers that. But the point is that those are the kind of examples where, you know, if that was done in a foreign country, we would have said that the pretext to invade the country, right? Here it happens, and, you know, it's simply, you know, it's politics as usual. So whether or not they're rigged by the computer system, I say that the political process is rigged to the point that you have two parties, that you have two options of anything, blue and red. You know, it's just the Bloods and the Crips, like Jesse Ventura talks about. I don't see that as an option. I don't see how you can have an option in a two-party system. So that itself is a rig.
You know, let's get back to the Matrix theory. You know, I think what was his name? The main man talking to Keanu Reeves. I think Neo. No, Neo's Keanu Reeves' character in Morpheus gave Neo opportunity to take the pills. One to, keep it normal, remain the same, live as you live in the normal human way of thought, or take this other pill and find out and be in the Matrix. Would you make a choice? What choice would you make, Sean?
I mean, I think we all chose the pill. Like this. We all chose the pill to put us here in the first place. I believe that it was a choice of our souls to come here. The question then, as you're saying, is really what Morpheus offers Neo is, are we going to wake up or not? And I think I've already put myself on the path of waking up. Now, the ultimate seduction, don't forget, are the things of this world. You know, the reason that the soul can be ensnared in this world is it's delight, the things that the religions talk about avoiding or keeping yourself protected from, right? Not worshiping money. I mean, literally, you get films like Wolf of Wall Street that are literally an ode to Mammon, the god of money, right? And that's where our culture is right now. It's a culture that worships money like an idol. We've lost. I don't know that we look. It happens throughout history. At the end of the day, we always have societies that rise and fall. Civilizations come to their end. But right now, what looks to me like the end of American Western civilization has been this obsession with the material, right? Materialism, material wealth, greed, ego, right? My own ego, my own benefit at the expense of others. I don't mind, the corporations don't have to answer to anyone except, their, not even their shareholders really, but the banks that they owe money to, and they own them.
Sean,
so, yeah.
We've actually got a couple questions from the chat room. I thought you were going to pause real quick. If you don't mind taking them real quick, I'm going to bring in our production assistant who's been watching the chat to ask them to you. Laura Solomon, how are you? You got
I'm doing fine, sir.
Go ahead and ask the questions that you got.
I noticed there was a recent episode on the Lit TV on the secret constitution. In this context, we have the World Bank whistleblower, who is an attorney out of D.C. Her name is Karen Hudis, and she is very into the idea of a constitutional convention, hopefully to address the part of the secret constitution issue. How would you go about addressing the reality of the secret constitution and its contents? What do you think of it, and how do you see it working?
Okay, you're asking how do we go about calling a convention to repeal the secret constitution? It's not really a secret constitution, it's the second constitution, but most people are not aware of it because it was basically remember, the United States, the laws of the United States, Jordan Maxwell has been one of the best in explaining this. The laws the United States operates under is not what most people think it operates under. We're a corporation. The United States is a corporation. The United States, people, we're no longer persons. We're no longer sovereign people. We are citizens of the United States corporation. The fact that you're not sovereign is proved by the fact that whenever you go into a court of law, you don't have the right to defend yourself. If you can defend yourself, that would make you a sovereign person. The fact is you can't. You have to rely upon a lawyer who's passed the bar. Right? So there's a lot of structure to this whole issue of sovereignty, and I think that's how you go about trying to awake people to the fact that we don't live under the laws we presume we live under. By the way, the laws themselves become more and more ridiculous and in violation of the original Constitution every day, and yet people don't, obviously are not standing up and fighting over that, let alone the fact that we actually lost the Constitution probably over 150 years ago when we became citizens of this corporation. So if we're going to actually have like a legitimate constitutional convention, I think it has to begin with education, educate people to the fact that we're not sovereign, we are not the citizens that created this country in the first place, and ultimately the government was supposed to answer to the people, but now we answer to the government. That's an inversion of the principles of this country.
Sadly, it seems that every incident we have, our constitutional rights are being taken away. One example was a lot of controversy surrounding Sandy Hook. The very next day, gun legislation was, put into place to basically take away our Second Amendment. What do you think is going to ultimately happen? Do you think they're literally burning it to pieces where we're going to have no rights left?
Potentially. It's a possibility. I can't really tell you what the future is going to bring because I don't like to be too pessimistic. If we get into that kind of fear mongering, where it just it's like saying the future is just going to end up as martial law and we're all going to be obliterated in nuclear war. That's a possible future. That's definitely there. But I try to focus on waking up and waking others up because I believe that the more we awaken, the more we'll have a better chance of surviving whatever may occur. Right. So yes, there's definitely the potential for martial law scenarios as the economy continues to break down, because that's really what the major issue is economic. The fact that we're in a debt-based system that's so far in debt, none of us ever have the hope of getting out of it. Maybe individually, a few of us break through and become like a media mogul or multi-millionaire. But at the end of the day, the actual system itself is the problem.
I totally agree with you about not being pessimistic and fear-mongering, and I believe that the power of numbers and information of talking about these issues can actually get people together to prevent that from happening. So although they are scary topics, at some point we have to address them and come together as a resolution. On your channel, you cover so many topics. One of the things I saw is Federal Reserve, and I wanted to ask you about Fort Knox. So many people claim that there is no gold, and I'm starting to sway that way because of our debt. You mentioned our debt system. Our country cannot operate without this debt, and yet we go and pledge another $1 billion to Ukraine, but we're raising the taxes here and cutting spending. Well, where's that extra $1 billion going to come from?
The extra $1 billion, it will. It's never meant to be repaid. That's the point, right?
That's right.
As far as Fort Knox goes, one of the most interesting theories I heard recently, Fort Knox, apparently the gold is not there, but the actual gold that apparently we have is apparently it's already been looted. I've heard recently that a lot of the gold is gold plated, like gold exterior with the tungsten is actually inside the bars, and so it just looks like gold, but actually it's tungsten underneath, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure how that will play into the Anunnaki returning for their gold, for example, but again, we're not in a gold-based system anymore, so really the price of gold can fluctuate. It doesn't necessarily, it's more correlated to oil than it is to the dollar at this point, because the dollar is just, it's not tethered to anything, right? All the world's currencies are all just floating, and it seems like the reevaluation has to do with a collapse of the U.S. dollar into this hyperinflation as we go into quantitative easing infinity. And then in that process, they'll start bundling the currencies and doing some kind of special drawing rights, as they did, I think, in the 80s originally, through the IMF World Bank. And then that's really going to be where it gets interesting to know, if we can, if the Chinese, Russian allies. Remember, a lot of this Ukraine situation was about what? About the EU, the extension of the EU to the Ukraine, right? Why would anyone want to extend the euro into Ukraine when you see what's happened already to so many of these countries, from Greece to Italy to Spain, and other Eastern European countries as well that have been sunk as a result of accepting the euro, right? So why would the Ukraine be so insane as to go into that policy? Well, they probably weren't. It was this faction that's, the NATO faction in Ukraine that goes back to the Nazi party, that now actually they wouldn't call it, but they were pro-Nazi during the Second World War, right? That's the faction that's been pushing to go join the EU and the euro, while the other faction saying, no, let's go with Russia and let's separate ourselves from the EU and that whole, and that economic, forum. And so that was really the basis of this current war ongoing internally in Ukraine, right? So when it comes to, the future of the economies, like, you've got to wonder if Russia, China, and their, the countries basically that want to basically have economic relations with them aren't going to start breaking from this petrodollar system that we're currently under. That was the whole point of the Iraq invasion in Libya, wasn't it? I mean, a big part of it was the fact that they had come off the petrodollar currency and they were allowing euros in exchange for, and other currencies in exchange for the oil. And not just euros, but also, like the Russian marks, Chinese marks. So again, it gets into this whole economic policy, and this is beyond my understanding, because I'm not well enough versed. I don't work in that world to really understand it. But I do think that the overall debt formation really was, all these debts the United States has accrued is, it's really just meant, it just lines the pockets of who the private bankers that issue the currency, right? Because they're not issuing it, they don't have anything behind it. It's not like there's gold. It's not like they have gold behind their issuing a currency. They literally just have the sovereignty that we gave them in 1913 when the Congress illegally established the Federal Reserve Bank. And the question is, actually, I've been wondering, is the Federal Reserve Bank even still legal? Because I'm told they may have only had a 100-year lease in the beginning when we first, basically allowed them to function as our sovereign currency. That's 1913. Now it's 2014. Are they even still legal? They probably, obviously they were never constitutional, but I just wonder, based on that act, no one's really talking about that. No one, aside from Ron Paul, no one's talking about taking down the Federal Reserve, and I think that has to be the major question, is why is the Federal Reserve allowed to continue to operate when it's not, it's a private bank that's issuing our coin, when it should be the United States Treasury issuing credit, to its people, based on the sovereignty of the nation.
I completely agree with you right there, and I think that is just one more issue that we need to face. You seem very knowledgeable on this subject. Would you say this is one that's close to your heart? Or what topics that you work with? Because you cover everything from what I see, everything. Is this one of those that's really close to your heart because I guess it affects everybody?
Yeah, but you can't say it's anything that's closer to my heart than anything else. You can't really break the system down to one place or another. I think that is a fascinating question, because when it boils down to it, my philosophy is that the universe is infinite. That the universe provides for every single human being on this planet, human being or not human being. But all life to exist is provided by the abundance of this planet. I think Thrive is a great documentary, and I think everyone should watch it. And it gets really to the core of that issue that that all these wars, that all this money, this debt slavery, that the petrodollar regime, free energy, everything is basically being prevented because of a mentality of scarcity. And that really goes down to this like barbaric reptilian brain, that still rules us. That's saying we have to live a life of scarcity, lack of resources, and that's against my principle. That I think that there's an infinite universe that's out there for us to create from and to utilize for the, for all of our advantage, for all of us to find a harmony of interest for each other as well as ourselves.
We got our first caller. We're going to be coming to a break in a few minutes, but I want to give that caller the chance to ask the question. And then next hour, I want to open the call lines so anybody out there listening, get the number online, or I'll give it to you now, 818-923-1713 on the West Coast. On the East Coast, 347-688-2902. Caller 818, what's your name and welcome to the show?
Hi, I'm Dave, and thanks a lot for taking my call. The first question that came in about Karen Hudis was actually what I was planning on asking about, but Sean just touched on something that I do know a little bit about. I don't know if you guys have heard of Bill Still. He's the producer, director of The Money Masters and The Secret of Oz, and he has a new movie called Jekyll Island. Are you guys familiar with Bill Still?
I'm personally not. Are you, Sean?
I see. Okay, I haven't seen this new documentary.
Yeah, Bill Still mentions that in the original charter with the Federal Reserve, it was a 99-year charter, supposed to be up at the end of 2013. But what happened was in the 1930s, during the Depression, the Fed was given extra powers. I think their 13-01 powers were given to be like a secret operative, not just a lender of last resort, but they were able to do things in total secrecy, and that was given to them during the Great Depression. Also, around that time, apparently, there was a congressman or a senator that also, I guess, he attached a rider to that part of the bill that said that it wiped out their charter, so it made their charter indefinite. And Bill Still made a mention of this. I think it's in his latest documentary. I've watched his YouTubes every now and then, but I know he mentioned it in one of his YouTubes that the charter was originally a limited charter, then it was made unlimited from the Great Depression on. But yeah, that's the way I understand it, at least.
John, any comment on that?
No, I mean, that would make sense. I mean, that's got to be the reason why no one's brought it up. Although, you never know what's done in the back rooms of power, whether it be in Congress, or the congressmen, it's like the first signing of the act in the first place. It was done, I think, over the Christmas holiday when most of the congressmen were home, and it was really done by stealth.
Right.
Right. It's an endlessly fascinating subject, and I don't know. I think Ron, if anyone can do it, it's like Ron Paul and his people. Obviously, some of the best out there in terms of facts.
Yeah, I agree.
We can pick this right back up after break. Everybody, stay tuned to Third Phase Moon Radio. Right back.
By popular demand, we are pleased to announce that Third Phase of Moon album is finally featured on iTunes. With all your favorite songs and themes you hear on the top UFO channel on YouTube, Third Phase of Moon. Out of This World soundtracks composed by master artist Paul Barrett. With 12 remastered and extended cuts to enjoy. Download them now, exclusive on iTunes. Click the link in the description below. Now listen for yourself, heard by millions around the world, Paul Barrett's album, Third Phase of Moon.
Looking for markets or for countries to gobble up into debt slavery, for example. And that's, the animosity is more against that policy, right? Whether it be military imperialism or economic imperialism. And so the actual, their animosity against that American imperialism is, I agree with it. I'm also an anti-imperialist. And so I have no argument with the Iranian government on that policy. Of course, when it comes to domestic policies, I think almost every government in the world, if not every government in the world, is corrupt and, does things against their own people. But you don't have to look far. You don't have to go to Iran to find that. You find more prisoners in America than anywhere else in the world.
Welcome back to Third Phase Moon Radio. We are speaking with Sean Stone, filmmaker and host of Buzzsaw, found on YouTube under Lit TV, which, by the way, I got to congratulate you because you just broke 50,000 subscribers. Yes. Nonetheless, before we went to break, Mr. Stone, you mentioned your trip to Iran. What prompted you to go there, and what happened when you were there?
What prompted me to go to Iran?
Yes.
What's wrong with that? It's like, I don't know, man. People think it's such a big deal, but to be honest with you, I was just curious. I'm like, all right, you say this is part of the actions of evil. Let's find out. I want to see what the country's like, and I was invited there by a producing, so who was the biggest hypocrite? But my main interest again was cultural and starting to open up some dialogue between our countries, hopefully.
I think you're doing a great job here. I remember when I was about 14, I watched, Platoon, and then there was Born the 4th of July, and then the JFK, and then Wall Street. All these movies were, bigger than life, involving the world and matters of economic and despair, and the whole gamut. And it was pretty impressive. Are you going to be following in your father's footsteps and making any narrative films in the future? Any big plans for a theatrical release in some of these big heavy-duty subject matters to get the dialogue going?
Let's hope so. It's not easy. It's not easy that these people are not different than us. Culturally they're different, but obviously, it's not like not a completely alien culture, and it's not part of the axis of evil. There really is no animosity between the American people and the Iranian people. In a certain sense, the Iranian, anti-Americanism, I think, comes from, a general world antipathy to the perceived American empire. Honestly, it has more to do with, their anger, not just Iran, but the world's, realization and anger at the American empire, which is not even American, it's really British. It's a financial empire that looks to, basically seeks out countries for neo-colonial purposes, right? Producing partner of mine who's Iranian, lives in Canada, and, he lives between Iran and Canada, and we were talking about doing some film projects, frankly, and that's really been my main interest since going there, is being able to shoot a film or two in Iran that would take on topics that would be of interest to an international audience, but being able to make films there to show that that's really a good way of breaking down barriers, frankly, between countries is art. Having diplomacy through artists and people who are working together on projects, on storytelling, for example, is a very important. It's a very easy way, in a sense, to start unveiling that the reality